Honestly, this is great. 10VH, like, just a lot of wrecks. This is what I see it, Brad and everything. Yo, it'll be great, I love this sport.
Well, the NASCAR playoffs have started today, and I didn't think this one would be as exciting or as entertaining, this whole playoff run, as some other years, but yeah, I was already wrong. That goes to show I don't know anything, so if you guys want to click off the video already, I really won't blame you. You can go watch some Spider-Man clips, go watch IndyCar finale, that's going on, I think. Maybe just go watch something else. TV shows on Netflix, pretty good. If you're still here and you care about what I have to say, thank you, I appreciate it. But let's talk about Las Vegas. Now, this one was... Man, that was a weird race. Definitely entertaining. Definitely very, very entertaining because of everything that was going on. Unfortunately, the crowds weren't that good because it was 100+ degrees, and that very understandable. I don't know if I would want to sit in grandstands for 4+ hours when it's 100+ degrees. So, pretty unfortunate about that. But the race itself was just nuts. I mean, I wouldn't even call it like one of the best races of the year. I think there's been better racing at other tracks, short tracks in particular. But when it comes to mile and a halves, the racing was normal. I mean, it's all right. It's pretty good at some points. So the track was hot and slick, so you can kind of move around. The difference with Las Vegas was the tire wear. So because of how hot it was just eating up the tires pretty quickly. If you went up to the top lane, you would really, really chew up the tires. And we saw a lot of that in the race. I think Kyle Larson was the first guy that had this issue when he went up to the top of the track, and in the first stage, he had a flat right front tire. So this added a pretty cool element into the race because it felt kind of old school. You actually had to take care of your car, and a lot of drivers talk about this nowadays, that you just kind of push the car as hard as you can, and it's not really about saving your stuff anymore. Well, this race was a little bit different because you did kind of have to save your stuff. You actually had to be very aware of what line you were running and how hard you were pushing. So that was definitely an A+ for me. So let's talk about really what was going on in the race. Now, I'm probably not going to go through stage by stage. I'm just going to do this review a little bit differently. Like, usually I start from the beginning of the race and I go stage by stage, show you guys what happened. I just want to talk about, like, in general, this race, like, as a whole, certain incidents that happened. Because now that we're in the playoffs, I mean, obviously the focus is on 16 guys, 16 playoff drivers, and where they finish in terms of point standing. So stage 1 consisted of a lot of these guys being in that top 10 area. Joey Logano was looking really strong early on in the race, but kind of faded a little bit towards the end. Truex had a strong car, especially on the long run, and Martin Truex Jr. would win stage 1 as well, which just solidifies what he's been doing. He's gonna make it to Homestead. I'm almost positive about that. Let's go to one of the other big three. This happened in stage 2. So Kevin Harvick blows a right front tire, and he collects Eric Jones involved in this incident as well. With the whole tire wear issue, Kevin Harvick would blast Goodyear about it. He did not like the fact that these tires were on these cars. He didn't like anything about them. He called them piece of crap tires, so he wasn't very happy. However, even with hitting the wall and finishing in 39th, Kevin Harvick has a plus 30-point gap on the cutoff line. So, like I said, that's why I have to be so assured these guys are making it to Homestead. I mean, you can finish last in a race and still be so far ahead in terms of the cutoff line. So definitely kind of interesting there. So I don't really think Kevin Harvick is in a lot of trouble. Still plus 30 on the line. And a few other incidents involving playoff drivers would happen too. So while guys like Truex and Logano and Brad Keselowski, Kyle Larson was trying to get back up towards the front after he blew that right front tire, and he didn't really have a lot of damage, so he was fine. But these guys are trying to get back up towards the front, and just like a quick note on Penske, they definitely looked strong today, so that's why they were running up there a lot as well. But while those guys are running up front, you have other guys like, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Jimmy Johnson. He ran well today. Jimmy Johnson was in the top 10 for later half of stage 2 into stage 3 as well. He was in the top 10. He was running well. Late in the race, he was running top 5. Guys like Jamie McMurray, I know he's not a playoff driver, but Jamie McMurray was running well. Chase Elliott, he had a few issues on pit road that would put him back a lot, but then he was running well. Ryan Blaney, the Penske car himself, was running well. He had an incident with Eric Almirola actually that he was coming on the high side, and Almirola kind of just didn't give him a lot of room coming out of the corner. Blaney had to hit the brakes. He hit the outside wall. It kind of killed the car a little bit for a little while. He fell back to around 20th place, but then he was able to work his way back up, get back up towards the front. So most of the playoff drivers are doing well. Most of them are getting stage points. Everything kind of seems all right. Austin Dillon, who came from the back to the front, he's trying to do what he can. He got to around that 15th position area. But another big incident that involved Chase Elliott. So Jimmy McMurray, he had made some contact about, I think, a lap or two earlier with the outside wall, and then he blew a tire heading into turn 3, and poor Chase had nowhere to go, kind of like Eric Jones. Nowhere to go, had to hit McMurray, and Elliott will be out of the race. Unlike Harvick, Chase Elliott does not have many playoff points, so this will hurt him. He's outside the cutoff line for now. Not a lot of points because of what happened later on in the race, but he's outside the cutoff line for now, which is unfortunate for Chase Elliott and for Elliott fans because the car was actually good. you just had to pass a lot of guys to avoid having those pit stop issues. They had a lot during the race, kept falling back. They had to restart on the inside line a lot, so he just had a lot of bad luck. But he had a good car, solid, probably top 6-7 car, and he just couldn't kind of get back up there. So then this really hurt him. So we've had guys like Larson, Harvick, Eric Jones, Chase Elliott. They've all had issues. We move later on into the race. Kyle Busch, not talked about him because Kyle Busch is not doing all so well. He did well early on in the race trying to run with Joey Logano, but his car just was not handling at a certain point of the race. He was just trying to make his way back up towards the front. Strategy was thrown all over the place as well. So strategy at the end of stage 2, there were certain guys like Larson and McMurray that did not pit at the end of that stage, so they got up towards the front. Kyle Busch was part of that, but Kyle Busch never really was able to stay up there, and that's really when he lost most of his track position. But when he's trying to get back up towards the front, he's running on the high line. There's speedy dry up there, and he just kind of loses control of the car. Luckily, nothing happened in terms of the splitter. So he just has to go down pit road, get 4 tires, and go back on his way. The caution right after that involves Denny Hamlin doing the same exact thing. So Denny Hamlin in the same part of the corner spins out where that speed dry is, but this time he's not as lucky. He could just dig straight into the grass with that splitter, and his race is done. While all this chaos is happening up towards the front, it's really Brad Keselowski, Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, Joey Logano. Those are the 4 guys that are really battling it out for the lead, and this was actually really good racing. So what I liked seeing was, it's kind of something you see at Atlanta, well, back in the day, is just kind of this pack of leaders, not necessarily in a pack, but these pack of guys running different lines and all able trying to pass each other. That's what was happening here. So you had Larson in the lead. This was around 25 laps to go. Larson in the lead. Brad Keselowski's trying to pass him on the bottom, and then you had Joey Logano and Truex battling, and Logano was trying to block or run in the line of Truex on the bottom, and then Truex was trying to pass him on the bottom, and all 4 of these guys were within 0.7 of a second. So it was just right there, and you knew if Truex got past Logano, maybe Truex get to Larson. Larson had to keep fighting off Brad Keselowski, but the Denny Hamlin caution that we just talked about was the caution that changed the way this worked. So once that caution came out and they restarted the race with a few laps to go, it was around 10 laps to go, Larson loses the lead. Brad Keselowski just gets an amazing restart, takes over the lead. And you think the race is done here, but it wasn't, because there were multiple guys that had issues on this restart. I don't have any footage of it, but basically they were going almost 4 wide coming out of turn 2 in the mid-pack, around 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th area. Guys like Alex Bowman, Jimmy Johnson were here. Larson was falling back a little bit, but these guys were around this area. And Jimmy and Bowman currently are having really good days. I touched on Jimmy Johnson, but I didn't touch on Alex Bowman, who did really well. Got some stage points as well. He was doing very well, and he was trying to get his way back up there. And they make some contact. People are banging off each other, and Jimmy was on the bottom of a 3-wide incident, and he cut his right front tire. And then Alex Bowman was in the wall that cut his right front tire, I think. That leaves all 4 Hendrick cars. Didn't touch on William Byron because he had issues himself early on in the race, but all 4 Hendrick cars, Byron, Elliott, Bowman, Johnson, all with issues. So they probably, and unfortunately that was probably one of their best 1.5 races of the year, if I can think of. William Byron never showed the speed, but Bowman was running second for a little while. Jimmy Johnson was up in the top 5 later on in the race when Larson, Logano, Keselowski, and Truex were all battling for that lead. Johnson was the guy in 5th. So it was amazing to see him up there, and he got stage points, and he was doing well, but that one little incident on that restart cuts the right front tire. This brought out a debris caution. Now, I didn't agree with this. I understood there were people with tires down. I get that. And I understood that maybe when you have a tire down, debris can come off of it and see where the debris was. Again, I get that. However, with Brad Keselowski being out to like a 1-second lead with 5 laps to go, I thought the race was pretty much, done at that point. But the only thing that bothers me is they didn't show the debris. Like when NASCAR has lost their credibility when it comes to debris cautions, because since the introduction of stage racing, that debris cautions just don't happen as much as they used to anymore. And before stage racing, many of you guys know how many weird debris cautions would come up. Phantom debris cautions, phantom yellows for water bottles, just stuff you have no idea why the caution's coming out. So NASCAR have lost their credibility in terms of debris cautions when you call them, because it has been proven just through statistics alone that they were calling phantom debris cautions to manipulate the race, generate a little bit more excitement, restart, stuff like that. That's a fact. You can't really debate that just based on the stats. That's proven. So when they don't show the debris, that bothers me. So I wasn't very happy about that. I know some of you on Twitter were mad at me saying like, oh, of course, four people had flat tires or whatever happened. I get that. I'm just saying you got to show me the debris. If you don't show me the debris, I'm going to judge you because you've already lost the credibility from years past. So I felt bad for Brad Keselowski at that moment because I thought he might lose the race on that. And again, when you don't show the fans the debris, I don't know where it is. I saw like debris trucks, I think, or the trucks picking it up in 3, but I just didn't see what it was. So that kind of bothered me a little bit. But we had this amazing, fantastic overtime finish with all the previous cautions that were happening. So this is the restart that happens. Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, they're side by side. And Joey Logano does a really good job staying with Brad Keselowski on this restart. 2 laps to go. They go down the back straightaway, make a little bit of contact. I was a little bit worried there. They make contact right in that area where you could cut a tire, but luckily I don't think any of the tire, the splitter, the tire contact, and none of that happened. It was just maybe like a little bit of body fender. So none of that happened. They go through turn 3. Keselowski gets the lead. He's able to drive it in deep, get the lead. But then there's another incident involving another playoff contender, which was Kurt Busch. So now Kurt Busch is in trouble. He gets into a wreck, and he's going to be pretty far down in the playoff standings. This brings out a red flag where now we have IndyCar racing on NBCSN because of the red flag that's going on. And then back to the race in NASCAR, another restart happens. And then this one finally went kind of like normal. It was kind of a normal restart. Brad Keselowski's able to pull away, get away from the field. Truex, Ryan Blaney. Kyle Larson's actually able to get the second somehow. He was able to run around the top side, get the second place. But Brad Keselowski wins 3 in a row. So he's won at Darlington, he's won at the Brickyard, he's won at Las Vegas now. So 3 in a row for Brad Keselowski, and he has clinched his way into round 2. If you couldn't tell just by how I was talking, this race was crazy. It was definitely very, very crazy. It was good too. I mean, you can't, unless you're like a hardcore racing fanatic. I don't know how to say it, but like you just want pure solid racing. Then maybe you were a little bit annoyed with all the cautions. But this was entertaining. This was definitely the entertainment that NASCAR needed. It was a solid race too. I mean, I think the tire issues maybe cost the teams a little bit because I think more guys wanted to go up top. It's just that I don't think they could risk it because they would just chew the tires up. Once you saw Larson go up top and you saw him blow the tire, every team took notice of that, and it was like, you might want to stay on the bottom, maybe you go to the middle a little bit to avoid the bumps, but you might not want to try the top. So that was a little bit unfortunate. And it's not really anyone's fault. I mean, Harvick will blame Goodyear will blame the teams. It's just a back and forth that always happens. You know, when one side blames the other blames the other. That's how it's always been. It's never going to change. So, the results of the race. Brad Keselowski, by the way, he also won stage 2, so he got a playoff point for that. But now that he's won 3 races, he has enough playoff points. He's kind of good there. Kyle Larson in second. Larson's becoming very well, I guess, acquainted with second place. I kind of feel bad for him. New Chase Elliott, basically. Martin Truex Jr. in third. Joey Logano fourth. Ryan Blaney in fifth. He was able to recover from whatever incident he had with Eric Almirola. Eric Almirola, speaking of him, finished in sixth. Good run for him. Kyle Busch had to pit with just a little bit to go to get some fresh tires. He's able to make his way all the way back up to 7th place. Daniel Suarez somehow gets an 8th. Ryan Newman in 9th. Don't know how he ended up there. Paul Menard in 10th. Don't know how he ended up there. So there were a lot of guys that had issues. Like, again, Elliott, Elliott, Harvick, Busch, Hamlin. Just a lot of people had Kurt Busch. A lot of people had issues that allowed these guys to get up towards the front. Austin Dillon in 11th. Maybe a little bit disappointing for Austin Dillon because he actually could have gotten up a little bit higher with all the incidents due to other drivers, but maybe something on the restarts happened where he fell back a little bit. Trevor Bayne, Regan Smith in 12th, Trevor Bayne in 13th. Good run for Regan Smith in the 95. A solid run for Trevor Bayne in the 6th. AJ Allmendinger, Chris Buescher in 15th. Corey LaJoie somehow got to 16th. JJ Yaley, Landon Castle, Alex Bowman in 19th, and Ross Chastain, who actually won the Xfinity Series race, in 20th. And then from here on out, from 21st to 22nd, all these guys had issues. These are playoff guys that had issues. So Kurt Busch, Jimmy Johnson, a 22nd place for Jimmy Johnson and a 21st for Kurt Busch seems really bad, but with all the people that had issues early on in the race, they're still kind of okay when it comes to the Roval coming up in 2 weeks and Richmond as a short track, anything could happen there. So that's going to be interesting for them. Clint Boyer had a few issues in the race. DiBenedetto, Earnhardt, Kyle Weatherman, probably his career best finish. I don't know how he finished 26th. And then the rest of the field. When you go down to the bottom, you will see some playoff guys like Elliott, like Harvick, and Eric Jones. Those three had the biggest issues, and so did Denny Hamlin as well in 32nd. Those guys had issues, but for Harvick, like I said earlier, he's kind of okay with having that massive point gap. So how do the standings look? I never really show point standings, but point standings actually matter now. So that now that we're in the playoffs, like cutoff lines and stuff, we can actually talk about it. And you'll see the 300 guys are kind of around the bubble line. Alex Bowman is in 12th, Jimmy Johnson 13th, Chase Elliott 14th, and those guys are pretty close together. Clint Boyer fell back a few spots because of his poor run. Austin Dillon, actually in 10th is not bad for him. Eric Jones and Denny Hamlin, they're in 15th and 16th, but not too far back. Like if they have a few good stages, they have a good finish, like they can get back up towards the front. And that's why a 20-point gap to the cutoff line might seem bad, but it's not, because let's just say Alex Bowman finishes 11th and Denny Hamlin finishes 2nd in one stage. You've made up half the gap. That doesn't even account for the race result, doesn't even account for the second stage. So it's really not that bad for everyone at the bottom, especially in this first round. It might get worse and worse as, it gets harder to get through the stages, or through the parts of the playoffs. It gets harder and harder. But for now, not too much to panic. And because of that Roval race that's coming up, it's so much of a wild card. No one knows what's going to happen there, that you don't really have to focus too much on points. Guys who are going to be happy, obviously. Truex, Kyle Busch, Keselowski, Harvick, he's still good. Logano's happy. Kurt Busch, Ryan Blaney. They're in a solid, okay position heading into what is the wild card races, that you can even throw Richmond in, because Richmond with those restarts can get crazy. So it's going to be an interesting little area for this first round, and we'll see how everything goes. Overall, the race was 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Well, not. It was nuts. I mean, you can't really say we had a boring race lately. Maybe the Brickyard was not the best, but it still had an amazing finish, and it had good storylines with strategy going on around the place. So even that race is better than previous Brickyard races. So the last 2 months have been pretty good, in my opinion. So we move on to Richmond, a short track, and that is something that will be, I don't know if it can be as exciting as this. I mean, if we get races like this 2 weeks in a row heading into the Roval, like, we might as well just bring back the 2014 format, because then you'll just hit peak levels of entertainment value, because that's just pure chaos. If we had 2014 format with this race, oh my god, like Kevin Harvick would just be like, why am I in this sport? If we had 2014 format, Kevin Harvick would be, why am I in this sport when I dominate a season and then now I'm outside the cutoff line after the first race? That'd be hilarious. But luckily we don't have that format anymore. But that'd be funny. So guys, if you like the video, make sure to like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, comment down below, and I'll see you guys next week for Richmond. And hope you guys had a good day, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.
Even if I tried, even if I wanted to, and I can't change. Even if I tried, my love, she keeps me warm.